Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time the question comes to us from Lord Emperor Vader, who asked, "Hey Thor, do you think that naming the Rey film The New Jedi Order is a mistake because of its association with the Legends series, since most of the hardcore fans will always associate that title with the Yuuzhan Vong invasion? I don't think it applies to Dawn of the Jedi too much, since it fits in with what those stories were about, but unless this is the start of the Grisk or Vong invasion, I think the title is a mistake to call it The New Jedi Order. There is at least a good chance we will see them, since we will soon see what they look like in the Thrawn Alliance's comic, and the main reason this was not adapted yet from what I can tell is because they did not want to show us what the Grisk looked like." Okay, so I do agree with you that calling the Rey movie, or the whole time period essentially, since that's what they're calling it on their official timeline, I do agree that calling it the New Jedi Order is, or could be, a mistake, but not exactly for the reasons you bring up. I don't think the issue is, or necessarily will be, that the more hardcore fans who've read the books of the same name will always want to associate that name with the Vong, as much as they'll always want to associate it with Luke Skywalker. That he's the one in their mind who should have rebuilt the Jedi Order and not Rey, and her being the one who does do it will always be this sort of slap in the face to both those who loved the EU or just love Luke. But before getting into more of that, and believe me, I can and will get more into that, but first, just let me say of the Grisk that unfortunately, I don't think we'll be seeing them in live action probably ever. I think if that was going to happen, that the Ahsoka series, or more specifically Thrawn in that series, was the time and place to at least begin to allude to them. Because, as you know, if you've read those books, Thrawn, joined the Empire to sort of ascertain if the Empire, could be allies of the Chiss against the Grisk. His people are the motivation behind virtually everything he does, always. But instead of that, it seems like the Thrawn we're going to get in live action is just someone who wants to head back to the other galaxy, to the original galaxy, to reform the Empire and to take over for reasons. And sure, I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I do hope that Filoni isn't ignoring what Timothy Zahn has essentially built up over 2 excellent trilogies of books with the Grisk, not to mention the Chiss. And yes, there is certainly still time and a chance to bring them in and to do it all that way, to make the Grisk the main antagonist of the Mando time period, or perhaps even the New Jedi Order time period. There's still that chance we'll see Thrawn's true motivations, that it's all about his people. But I just don't see Filoni doing that. He doesn't seem to play very nice with the works of others. But going back to the Rey movie now and calling it the New Jedi Order, well, I think my biggest fear with that name is that it really will be new, or all new and all different compared to how the Jedi were, or how they're supposed to be, I'd argue. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a very good reason, or maybe I should say a scary reason, why we're going back to the Dawn of the Jedi, getting that movie, a movie that deals with the origin of the Jedi Order, as well as getting the Acolyte series, which will be set 100 years before the prequels, that, as Leslie Headland, the showrunner, has even said, that it won't be kind to the Jedi, and it's even been implied that the Jedi are wrong for keeping power to themselves or something, at least according to some of the lines we've heard in the leaked trailer. You then add this all up, and it seems like the plan could be, and yeah, this is when Lucasfilm finally decides to come up with a plan, but the plan could be to change what the Jedi are, or how they work, at the fundamental level, to change it away from what they would probably consider the more boring George Lucas version into the more exciting Disney Kennedy version that is using both the dark and the light. It's a little bit more, mysterious and edgy, that, oh, here's a Jedi using Force lightning, which is usually what people want to see when they think about using the dark side along with the light. Anyway, it could be that we'll see that in the beginning, in the Dawn of the Jedi movie, that the best or correct way to use the Force was equal parts dark and light, or to embrace both in order to achieve some sort of balance, which, yeah, is basically how it's presented in the EU version of the Dawn of the Jedi. Furthermore, it'll then be implied in the Acolyte that the Sith exist because the Jedi are doing it all wrong, or have been doing it all wrong the whole time, all 1,000 generations. That by only embracing the light and kind of shunning the dark, which leaves some type of, maybe a void or imbalance in the Force that is filled by well filled by the Sith, who are then not entirely in the wrong or not entirely at fault for the way they are, or something ridiculous like that. In other words, it'll somehow justify their existence. It'll justify the existence of the Sith because of the Jedi. It'll all be their fault and not the fault of the ones who, use the dark side. I mean, why would it be the fault of the ones who actually do the bad things? It'll then be Rey who figures it all out. She'll have both the ancient Jedi texts, which will come from the first Jedi movie or the Dawn of the Jedi movie, as well as knowledge of the fall of the Jedi during the prequels, maybe even given to her by the Force ghost of Luke that has come to the same conclusion or came to the same conclusion about why the Jedi fell and comes back to tell and help Rey. And since she was born of the dark, or something like that with her being the granddaughter of Palpatine, or the daughter of a failed clone of Palpatine, if what's been established in the books will hold up, she'll be the one to be able to figure this all out, what balance truly is and how to bring it back. She will create a new Jedi Order that will get things right and teach it to her students, and we'll all live happily ever after. And though I really, really hope I'm wrong about all this, I'm afraid I won't be. I'm afraid that the people making Star Wars, or at least making all of this stuff, will not understand that a big part of the reason why the Jedi failed, or why they were defeated by the Sith, or why Palpatine beats them in the prequels essentially, that what went wrong with them gets beautifully shown or explained in the Yoda arc of Season 6 of the Clone Wars when he had to face a dark side version of himself. And what that arc says or implies is that the Jedi had essentially thought they had maybe conquered or defeated the dark side in a sense. They were no longer vigilant against it, both from without and from within. You could even begin to get that feeling way back in The Phantom Menace when the Council scoffs at the idea of the Sith returning, that they would have sensed their return. We then hear later on about how Yoda believes some of the Jedi are becoming arrogant or too sure of themselves. And for those out there who just love this strange idea that balance is somehow equal amounts dark and light or something like that, who think the dark side must be embraced or used to some degree for reasons, well, that's in a way, but not in the way you want it to be, but that's already what the Jedi do or what they should do or what Yoda was reminded of in that arc when he realized that yes, there is darkness within him, the dark side is there, and that he needs to acknowledge or recognize its existence. But there's no need whatsoever to embrace it, no need to tap into it or use it, which would then give it power over him.
Recognize you, I do. My dark side, you are. Reject you, I do.
Basically, this arc touches on one of the greatest truths of life itself, that we all have darkness within us, or the potential to do bad or evil things. Any one of us is capable of harming others, and we should always be aware of the horrible things we could potentially do if we lose control. But balance isn't embracing that side of us just as much as we embrace the side that is capable of doing good or helping others. In fact, just like Yoda figured out or remembered in the episode, balance is about always trying to keep that side at bay and never embracing it. Because there is never a need or reason for as much evil in the world as there is good, or even any evil at all. It serves no real purpose in and of itself, but it does, or can if people embrace it, it can still exist and wreak havoc. That is why we should always be, again, vigilant. And people almost always being kind and or generous towards each other isn't going to lead to anything bad happening. That's not going to lead to some sort of imbalance. Benevolence does not need something to counteract it in order for things to be balanced. And to imply it does sounds like an attempt to justify one's own greed or malevolence towards others as something that is natural and something that is not their fault. Basically here, it's really simple. You gotta recognize all the bad you could do to hopefully keep that part of yourself in check, but there's never ever a reason to be evil or to harm another person, short of course, defending yourself from someone else doing evil things to you or to others. Like the Jedi even say, the Force is for knowledge and defense, never attack. But anyway, I've gotten a bit off topic here, so that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about balance in Star Wars. Do you think there's ever a reason to embrace the dark side? Does evil actually have a place and a purpose in the world beyond, I suppose you could argue, showing us or reminding us what goodness is and why we should value and embrace it? But whatever you think, or if you want to ask a question for a future lightning response video, which you can do by starting your comment off by saying, "Hey Thor," and then asking away. But whatever you choose to do here, leave those comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.